In today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the most haunted and mysterious Virginia creatures that reside here in the state of Virginia. And then we're also going to be taking a trip down to Nevada to dig through the history of the Virginia City ghost town. Many ghost sightings have been reported in multiple haunted locations in and around the ghost town. There's a lot of history in Virginia City. We will be talking about that today. Today is Thursday, July 25th, 2024, and the Dark Forest is coming at you right now. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Dark Forest podcast. Today is going to be a great episode. We got a lot to talk about. Hope you guys are ready to enter the Dark Forest, because this one, it's going to get wicked. It's going to get creepy. And we may find some stuff that we ain't looking for. As we always say, as paranormal investigators, always expect the unexpected. And that's exactly what we're doing today. Today we're going to be talking about some of the haunted locations and haunted stories around Virginia City in Nevada. And also the history of the town. We're going to dive real deep into the history, because there is a lot of history in this historic town of Nevada. I cannot wait for this one. And then we're also going to be talking about some of the mysterious creatures that reside right here in the state of Virginia. We have a couple we're going to talk about today. But before we jump right on into that, some upcoming plans. This Saturday, me, Chris, and Rob will be filming a couple abandoned houses. Maybe another cemetery investigation. I don't know. Just see how everything works out. But today's podcast, I hope you guys enjoy this one. Stick with me all the way through the end. We're going to brave this dark forest together. Let's jump right on into it. We're going to start off with the history of the Virginia City located in Nevada. As the town was established back in 1859, the history and the stories of Virginia City are as unique, rich, and colorful as the streets and buildings themselves. One must see Virginia City to even remotely understand that it's a living, breathing example of America's fortitude and desire to achieve. At its peak, Virginia City was a thriving, vibrant metropolis of 25,000 residents. Located about 35 miles southeast of Reno, Nevada, in the Virginia Range and in the shadows of Mount Davidson, its hills made millionaires. Silver and gold was buried deep beneath the streets, and men and women traveled from around the world to live and work. Miners pulled millions of dollars from shafts and tunnels 3,000 feet beneath the thriving town. The spirit of these Comstock originals still inhabits the places where they once worked, lived, worshipped, educated, and died. Today, visitors of Virginia City can walk these past residents. Pack your passion and imagination for this authentic step back in time. The 19th century mining bonanza that turned Virginia City into the most important industrial city between Denver and San Francisco was the result of the Comstock lode, a rich deposit of silver ore discovered by Henry Comstock, part owner of the property on which it was discovered. In June of 1859, getting his nickname for only making pancakes for breakfast, Henry T. Pancake Comstock was referred to as one of the original finders of gold in Gold Canyon, just south of Virginia City. Comstock was said to have been lazy, employing American Indians on his claims, and was a fast talker. Since he was on the scene of the original findings, his name stuck almost instantly. The destitute prospectors from all over the world funneled their millions back into the town by building mansions, hospitals, churches, opera houses, and schools. They imported furniture, fashions, and entertainment from Europe and the Orient. The richest helped finance the U.S. government during the Civil War, as attested by a museum named after General Ulysses S. Grant. In fact, silver from Virginia City may have helped save the Union. It has also built empires around the world. Among the finest examples is San Francisco, a city built with Comstock silver. The Ophir, Gold, Curry, and Consolidated Virginia mines, those consisting of the big bonanza of 1873, produced at least $300 million in mineral deposits and made telecommunications giant. John Mackay, a virtual overnight millionaire, the Comstock King, spent millions of those proceeds on Nevada's School of Mines located on the University of Nevada. Reno campus, where his namesake adorns many of the buildings on campus, including a statue on the quad. In addition to the Mackay Fair, Flood and O'Brien comprised the remaining Bonanza Kings. Other notable icons of the Comstock included engineer Adolph Sutro, who later became mayor of San Francisco, banker William Sharon, entrepreneur George Hearst, and the famous Madame Julia Bullitt. While the Virginia and Truckee Railroad transported bullion from the rural highlands of Virginia City to Carson City, the territorial enterprise, with literary whiz Mark Twain, delivered news of the day to the vibrant mining metropolis of 25,000. In 1868, Mark Twain reminisced and wrote about his journalism career in Nevada with the Virginia City Territorial Enterprise. Mining was a hard way to make a living. With 100-degree temperatures 3,000 feet down a mine shaft, it required deep concentration from the person at the helm of the elevator. Needless to say, the people worked hard and played hard. Away from work, the people of the Comstock enjoyed performances at Piper's Opera House, which still stands today as a favorite for events and weddings. Residents also played as a favorite pastime and unwound after a long day at Virginia City's many saloons that topped more than 100 at one point. Many attended school, with a Fourth Ward School still standing as a testament to grammar and high school students it educated. The school is considered a must-stop for visitors to learn about the town's vibrant history. Virginia City Comstockers are buried in the cemetery with stories told to this day and tombstone messages reflecting their unconventional lives. The Great Ball of Fire, or the Great Fire of 1875. On the morning of October 26, 1875, would dramatically change in Virginia City in more ways than one. A gripping fire that started at the boarding house of Crazy Kate and roared through town, fueled by the dry timbers and sapphire winds. Panic set in quickly. Buildings caught ablaze and mines filled with fire and smoke. Almost instantly, 8,000 people were homeless. The total loss for the city was estimated at $10 million. Luckily, the casualties from the fire were remarkably low. Restoring the town started immediately, and in less than a year, most everything was rebuilt. Even the International Hotel was reconstructed, which had 6 stories and hosted the first ever elevator in Nevada. In February of 2009, the National Trust for Historic Preservation presented the Distinctive Destinations Award to the Story County Commissioners. And that is some of the history on Virginia City. Now we'll move into some of the haunted locations and ghost stories about this most haunted city. Alright, this is the top 8 truly terrifying stories that prove Virginia City is the most haunted city in Nevada. Alright, well, we fixed our microphone. Now it's a lot louder. Alright, so the top 8 stories. Starting with number 1 is the Silver Queen Hotel. It's believed that the Silver Queen Hotel is haunted by a prostitute named Rosie. In room 11, she slashed her wrists in the bathtub. Supposedly, she can now be seen wandering the hotel. Many guests have reported hearing jingling doorknobs, voices in vacant rooms, and mysterious tapping on their doors. Several have even reported hearing loud footsteps on the wooden floor, which is odd considering the hotel is completely carpeted. Number 2 is the Piper's Opera House. In 1863, Piper's Opera House started out as McGuire's Opera House. It burned during the Great Fire and was later rebuilt, only to catch on fire again in 1883. In 1885, the building that houses Piper's Opera House was opened and sits on B and Union Streets. Many ghostly sightings have occurred at this historic opera house, including the apparition of a man with a handlebar mustache, a lady wearing a blue dress, and several ghosts sitting in the balcony area of the theater. Number 3 is the St. Mary's Arts Center. At St. Mary's Arts Center, formerly known as St. Mary Louise Hospital, many guests have reported seeing the ghosts of hospital staff from its earlier days. Several apparitions have been seen throughout the building. In addition to the front lawn, also according to reports, heavy footsteps and rolling gurneys can be heard down the hallway. Number 4 is the Silver Terrace Cemetery. During Nevada's early mining days, many deadly mining accidents occurred in Virginia City. Between the years 1853 and 1880, 295 deaths were reported. There are a few ghost stories associated with the Silver Terrace Cemetery, including the ghost of a little girl roaming through the rows of headstones while surrounded by a glowing light, a headstone that is known to turn around on its own, and also the cemetery gates will sometimes open and close on their own. Number 5 is the McKay Mansion. The McKay Mansion is best known for its former resident, a Comstock millionaire named John McKay. Approximately 7 apparitions are often seen inside and outside of this historic mansion, including a little girl named Elizabeth who's dressed in white. Johnny Depp reported seeing this little girl while he was in town filming a movie. Others have reported hearing Elizabeth playing upstairs, a colonel hanging out in the kitchen, and a lady running up and down the staircase. Number 6 is the Old Washoe Club. During the 1870s, the Old Washoe Club was built as a high-class club for the rich. Since then, many guests have reported seeing the ghost of a blonde woman named Lena, a prostitute hanging out on the spiral staircase. She was murdered in a third-floor bedroom, and the apparition of her killer, who committed suicide on the second floor, also has been spotted many times. And if those ghostly sightings weren't enough, several ghosts was also reported running throughout the club, including those reported seeing the spirit of a 13-year-old girl in a second-floor bedroom. Sadly, she was murdered in the basement. Number 7 is the Story County Courthouse. Supposedly, a man who went by the name of Peter Larkin was hanged behind the Story County Courthouse in 1877 after being accused of murder. Larkin's girlfriend Nellie gave a testimony that resulted in her boyfriend's death. His cries can still be heard throughout the courthouse. Number 8. And the final one is the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon. Serving people since 1861, the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon is Nevada's oldest existing hotel. According to reports, it's haunted by several miners who died in a nearby accident. The spirits of a former owner who went by the name of William and his housekeeper who went by the name of Rosie has been spotted by many guests. Rosie stays in room 4 as William stays in room 5. Supposedly, Rosie enjoys turning the lights on and off in addition to moving guests' personal belongings around to mess with them. William also enjoys joking around with the guests by doing such thing as locking them out of their rooms. And that's the top 8 most haunted and chilling ghost stories in the most haunted Virginia city in Nevada. Now we're going to talk about some of the most mysterious creatures in the state of Virginia. From colonial era witches to modern sightings of Bigfoot, the history of the Old Dominion is filled with creepy tales. Cemeteries, battlefields, and inns host haunts from Virginia's earliest days. Some appear as corporeal figures, and some as lights or ghostly noises. delve into the sad and scary stories of patients who still linger in Victorian-era sanatoriums. Unexplained sightings of mysterious creatures from Bigfoot to werewolves are widespread in the western part of the state, and Jessie rears her head in the bay. For the lucky few, even prominent buildings like the Executive Mansion in Richmond have their own uncanny legends. Join me as we dive in and explore the lore and legends of the state of Virginia. Let's go. Starting off with number 1, Fort Monroe. Fort Monroe is the largest stone fort ever built in the United States. Construction on the fort began in 1819. President James Madison named French military engineer Simon Bernard as supervisor over the construction. The fort was completed in 1834. It is the only fort in the United States circled by a 3 to 5 foot deep moat. Its irregular hexagonal shape makes it the only fort of its kind in the United States. Located in Hampton, Virginia, the fort has been continuously occupied since 1823. Although some form of fortification has existed at the site since 1609, the fort was named for the 5th President of the United States, James Monroe. The location of Fort Monroe was considered necessary for the defense of the Chesapeake Bay, Hampton Roads, and the navigational channel that connected them. The point of land on which Fort Monroe stands became known as Point Comfort. Hampton Roads is now one of the world's largest natural harbors. The granite for the walls came from Virginia and Maryland. The other building materials were supplied locally. The walls are 10 feet thick. Casemates were built so soldiers could fire the cannons in relative safety. The fort covers 63 acres, with the walls reaching 1.3 miles around the fort. Fort Monroe cost nearly $2 million. Jefferson Davis was a lieutenant in the United States Army and later went on to become President of the Confederacy. Davis held the position of Secretary of War at Fort Monroe and was later held there as a prisoner after the Civil War. Davis was accused of treason, plotting the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, and ill treatment of captured Union soldiers. In May of 1865, Davis was arrested and escorted to his casemate at Fort Monroe. Davis was chained by the ankle for 3 days. He remained in the casemate for 6 months before being moved to a better cell inside Carroll Hall. Davis was then released a year and a half later after Horace Greeley, Garrett Smith, and Cornelius Vanderbilt posted a $100,000 bail. Davis was never tried for the crimes of which he was accused. Some say Davis was wrongly accused. Robert E. Lee, who was a lieutenant and was stationed at Fort Monroe, Lee was responsible for directing large engineering projects. In 2011, Fort Monroe was decommissioned, but some of its buildings are protected as National Historic Landmarks. Among the ghosts that are reportedly seen at Fort Monroe are the ghosts of Jefferson Davis, Ulysses S. Grant, Chief Black Hawk, Edgar Allan Poe, and Abraham Lincoln. Many apparitions from the Civil War era are seen and heard around the fort. Jefferson Davis's ghost has been seen walking around the ramparts at night. Quarter number 1 is reportedly visited by the ghost of Abraham Lincoln. A voice recording of a little girl calling her cat was caught at the fort. The ghost of the gray cat is often seen disappearing around corners. So with this great ghost cat thing. It's often seen disappearing around corners, but some have also reported seeing the cat walk through a bookcase. The sounds of disembodied voices and horses are often heard around the fort. Pictures with orbs in them have also been taken there. June Poloniski lived in a house across the street from the fort. One night she took her dog outside and sat down to wait for it. A little while later she heard a knocking on her back door. She started through the house to see who was at the back door. To her surprise, she encountered a man wearing a uniform shirt from another period standing by the fireplace. He looked at her and disappeared. Poloniski's son reported seeing a strange mist in his bedroom. The people who live there now have also reported seeing the strange mist. The White Lady is one of the better known ghost tales from the fort. It seems that she was married to a captain who was not a very good husband. While he was away one weekend, his wife and a young soldier got together. The husband returned rather unexpectedly and caught his wife and her soldier friend in bed. The captain shot and killed his wife. She has since been seen wandering around the fort in a white nightgown. The second Chamberlain Hotel, which was in operation from 1928 to 2003, located on the fort's grounds, also has a female ghost called Esmeralda. She is thought to have been the captain's daughter and has been seen moving around on the 8th floor of the hotel. A ghost in a top hat that has also been seen on the hotel porch and is believed to be the ghost of Edgar Allan Poe. A family moved into the house on the base that was built in the early 1900s. Strange and unusual things started happening not long after they moved in. The first strange thing to happen was the disappearance of a camera from where it was kept. It later reappeared under a sink in the downstairs bathroom. Doors have been heard closing when nobody was there. Disembodied footsteps and voices are often heard around the house. In one of the upstairs bedrooms, a woman in Victorian-era clothing has been seen standing by a crib. The ghost of Abraham Lincoln has also been seen standing by the fireplace. As well, Ulysses S. Grant has also been seen in the house. The ghostly spirit of a woman is often seen staring out of a second-story window across from the casemate where Jefferson Davis was held. It is believed to be the spirit of his wife still watching for him. Residents of the house that was home to Robert E. Lee often hear disembodied footsteps and voices. In one of the houses on the base, a family was watching television when a Victorian table with a heavy marble top went flying across the room. There were workmen in the attic who commented that the little boy was watching them work as he colored, but they said it didn't bother them at all. A family who lived in a house on the fort's grounds with a broken organ planned to get it fixed. They hired a local company that was family owned, but there had been a death recently and no one was able to repair the organ. A few days later, a man showed up at the house to fix the organ. He fixed it and left without being paid. When the lady of the house called the company to inquire as how to make a payment, the company said it hadn't sent anyone out to fix the organ. After getting a description of the man, the company's representative realized that it was her father who had just passed away. Wow! The next one is Grace Sherwood, known as a Witch of Pungo. Grace White was born around 1660 to a carpenter, John White, and his wife, Susan White, in Pungo, Princess Anne County, Virginia. Today, what was in Princess Anne County is now part of Virginia Beach. In 1680, Grace White married a planter named James Sherwood. Grace White's father gave the Sherwoods 50 acres of land to get a start on their married life. In 1681, when John White died, the Sherwoods received the remainder of the Whites' estate. James and Grace Sherwood had 3 sons, John, James, and Richard. In 1698, James and Grace Sherwood sued their neighbors John and Jan Gisborne and Anthony and Elizabeth Barnes for slander. They had accused Grace of being a witch and claimed that she ruined their crops, killed their livestock, and conjured up storms. Grace was constantly in court, either fighting witchcraft charges or suing her accusers of slander. Other accusations said that she rode her neighbor and went out through a keyhole or crack in the door like a black cat. After her husband died around 1701, her fights with the townsfolk continued. In January of 1706, Luke Hill charged Grace Sherwood with witchcraft. In March 1706, Princess Anne County impaneled a jury of women to search Sherwood's body for witch marks. 2 marks were found, and Sherwood was put in jail to await trial. On July 10th of 1706, Sherwood stood trial in the 2nd Princess Anne County Courthouse. She consented to the traditional trial by water. She was bound and thrown into the western branch of the Lynnhaven River from a boat. She managed to free herself and rise to the surface, proving that she really was a witch. She managed to get ashore. Again, a woman's jury searched her body for witch marks. 2 marks were found on Sherwood's body. Sherwood was then sent to jail to await another trial. After 7 years, Grace Sherwood was released from jail, and she petitioned the Secretary of the colony for her land. She paid the back taxes, and with the help of Governor Alexander Spotswood, she was able to reclaim her property. Grace Sherwood lived quietly until her death at the age of 80. Following her death, there were tales of unnatural weather patterns and black cats lurking around her property. Many say her spirit is still strong. Some reports have surfaced that say you can see the ghostly figure of a woman with long, wet hair walking the banks of the Lynnhaven River, forever reliving her injustice. A statue by California sculptor Robert Cunningham depicting Sherwood with a raccoon and a basket of rosemary was unveiled on April 21st of 2007 on the site of present-day Centera Bayside Hospital in Virginia Beach. Sherwood was the last person that was convicted of witchcraft in Virginia. On July 10th, 2006, Governor Timothy Kane restored Grace Sherwood's good name 300 years to the day after her trial. This is the testing of Grace Sherwood. This is what went down in court. The witchcraft case of Grace Sherwood is one of the best known in Virginia. She was accused of bewitching a neighbor's crop in 1698. Allegations grew over time until the Princess Anne County government and her accusers decided she would be tested by dunking, since water was considered pure and would not permit a witch to sink into the depths. Sherwood's accusers on July 10, 1706 tied her hands to her feet and dropped her into the western branch of the Lynnhaven River, near now what is known today as Witch Duck Point. Sherwood floated a sign of guilt. She was imprisoned but eventually released. She lived a life quietly and died at the age of 80 in 1740. The next one is a Chesapeake Bay sea monster. Virginia can claim its own sea monster with a 30-plus foot long serpent-like sea monster. It has a head and eyes that resemble those of a giant snake and swims like a caterpillar. Chessie, as it was named, has been seen in the Chesapeake Bay for decades. The sightings have been reported from the middle of the bay to the mouth of the Potomac River. Witnesses have included naval officers, airline pilots, FBI officials, a retired lawyer, and many others. Sightings began surfacing in the 1800s with reports of a strange serpent-like monster in the Chesapeake Bay area. In 1846, Captain Lawson saw something strange swimming in the water between Cape Charles on the eastern shore and Cape Henry on the eastern tip of Virginia. In 1963, Dr. Lionel A. Walford saw something about 40 feet long swimming in Chesapeake Bay. He said it was a serpentine creature. On July 21st of 1978, retired CIA officer Donald P. Kiker and his wife saw something swimming in the water of the Chesapeake Bay. The 1970s brought a lot of new sightings. During the summer of 1978, sightings were coming in regularly, making Chessie a fixture with the local press. More than 30 people reported seeing Chessie in the Chesapeake Bay area and its tributaries. Some witnesses say their sightings lasted as long as 20 minutes. Some explanations offered by scientists, fishery officials, and the Smithsonian Institution are that witnesses have spotted logs, poles, seals, otters, turtles, porpoises, a string of birds, marching mammals, and of course, optical illusions. Some people believe that it's a prehistoric creature that has survived for centuries in the Chesapeake Bay. Others think it's a mutant eel or a giant anaconda. There have been relatively very few sightings since the 1980s. The next one is the big one for Virginia. It's a big one, and it's probably the most popular. Bigfoot. On September 21st, 1958, a journalist named Andrew Genzoli from the Humboldt Times newspaper in Eureka, California, received a letter from Coralie Bemis about some large footprints that were found by Jess Bemis, a bulldozer operator who was cutting a logging road up Bluff Creek in Northern California. Genzoli wrote an article about the footprints alongside the letter he received from Coralie. This story is what made the barefoot creature come Bigfoot. Because of the letter and Genzoli's articles, Bigfoot would become a household name worldwide. To Genzoli's surprise, his readers were fascinated by the story. Genzoli and another Humboldt Times reporter, Betty Allen, published a series of follow-up articles with the name the loggers had given the creature, Bigfoot. The story spread to newspapers throughout the country. The popular television show Truth or Consequences offered $1,000 to anyone who could prove the existence of Bigfoot. 60 plus years later, the legend persists, and Bigfoot has become a nationally recognized creature by some people. Of course, you have those who don't believe anything they don't want to believe that exists. But this hairy human-like creature known as Bigfoot in America is described as being 6 to 8 feet tall with an enormous body that weighs 400 to 600 pounds and is covered with shaggy brown, black, or reddish-brown hair. It has a small head compared to its body and appears nearly necklace. It stands on 2 feet like a human and swings in unusually long arms as it walks. It's sometimes said to give off a foul smell. It can move silently through the woods and occasionally gives a high-pitched scream. The footprints that have been found measure up to 24 inches long and 8 to 10 inches wide. Bigfoot is not known for attacking humans or destroying property. From all reports, it seems that it wants to be left alone. Sightings of these Bigfoot creatures are normally accidental from unsuspecting people. Most of the time, Bigfoot remains out of sight. No conclusive evidence has been found to prove that he actually exists. Now, the Bedford County Bigfoot of 2015. Now, hear me out. Bedford County is like literally 15 to 20 minutes from my house. So this is pretty much local to me. Like, it's dead local. Like 20, 25 minutes over to the next town. It's like right outside my back door. So let's get into this. On September 9th of 2015, at 11:38 p.m., a woman who prefers to remain anonymous was driving along State Road 43 just outside of Bedford, Virginia, going towards Peaks of Otter, a popular camping and hiking destination with a hotel and restaurant. Her headlights hit something that she thought was a deer. She slowed down and realized it was no deer. She saw a Bigfoot with a baby Bigfoot. She estimated the adult to be about 6 feet tall from the hips down. It was the color of a deer. The adult Bigfoot put the baby down, then looked over some rocks. The baby Bigfoot was about 3 feet tall and furry with a brown nose. It was a clear night. The animals were standing next to a mailbox where there was a gravel drive and overgrown field. On the other side of the road was a house for sale. The woman called 911 to report the creatures. A deputy was dispatched to the area but did not find any evidence of a Bigfoot. The woman said she went back to the location where she first encountered the creatures and found 3 footprints with about a 36-inch stride. The witness stated that she was new to the area and wanted to remain anonymous. She didn't know what her neighbors would think of her if she said that she had seen a Bigfoot. Wow. And like I said, guys, this is 25 minutes from where I'm at. Where my house is, like literally outside my back door. Like, wow. And this was just like 9 years ago. Wow. Now we move on to the Warren County Bigfoot of 2013. On April 23rd of 2013, around 5:30 a.m., as daylight was slowly creeping up, an unnamed person was going to work when he saw a massive 8-foot-tall creature covered with dark brown or black hair about 20 feet in front of his car. The headlights along with the early dawn light illuminated the creature. At the time, he said he was driving about 30 miles an hour. The creature was walking across the road on 2 feet and was swinging its long arms. After several steps, it disappeared into the woods on the other side of the road. The man stopped his truck to see if he could see or hear anything. He could not hear or see anything through the thick woods. This occurred on Reliance Road near Middletown, Virginia. The next one is the Shenandoah County Bigfoot of 2002. It was February 16th, 2002, when 2 friends were hiking in the Great Northern Mountains. They were following the Big Schloss Circuit hike in the George Washington National Forest. When they were not hiking, they were at a cabin named Sugar Knob Cabin. This was a very remote spot that was not visited frequently in the winter months. There was an ice storm coming, and just before dusk, the 2 friends made a campfire outside. They had been sitting around the fire for a while when they heard something slowly moving with very heavy footsteps around the perimeter of the campsite. They could tell it was walking on 2 feet, thinking it could be another person. They called out but got no response. After getting no response, they thought it might be a poacher. It was getting late in the evening and the sun was sinking low, so visibility in the woods was nearly gone. The 2 friends abandoned the fire and locked themselves in the cabin. They had never heard anything like this in all the time they had spent in the woods. Once they were in the cabin, the sounds moved closer. The footsteps continued until they were right next to the cabin. One of the friends opened a window and saw a large, dark, hairy face looking back at them from about a foot or so outside the window. The creature made a hasty retreat. After seeing them the next morning, the friends looked around but couldn't find any footprints due to the ice covering the ground. They hiked back down to their car and left. Next one is the Carroll County Bigfoot in 2007. On September 29, 2007, a 40-year-old man was driving down State Highway 94 from Fry's, Virginia, to Interstate 81. The man was about 5 miles down Highway 94 coming down Youngblood Mountain just above the entrance to the fishing hole called Cat Hole. It was a warm and foggy morning. As he went around the last curve, he saw something standing on the side of the road about 75 yards away. As he was closing in, it started crossing a 3-strand barbed wire fence. It put one hand on the fence as it crossed. Sorry guys, got a quick phone call. It's alright. So let's continue. It was about 8 feet tall, had about 4-inch long reddish brown hair and no neck to speak of. Its arms hung just below its knees. It just kept walking, never looking at the man. When the man got about 20 yards away from it, he stopped in the road to watch it walk away. It disappeared into the morning fog as it was visible for about 2 minutes. The next one is moving on to a different creature now. This one is one that I really want to go check out one day. This is on my bucket list to go check out, go explore the cemetery where this vampire is supposedly laid to rest. I really want to go check this out. It's in Richmond, Virginia. Let's move on to the Richmond Vampire. The Richmond Vampire is the legend of William Wortham Poole. I could not find his date of birth or the location of his birth. One legend is that W. Poole was run out of England sometime during the late 1800s for being a vampire. Poole and his family lived at 721 28th Street in Woodland Heights in Richmond, Virginia. His wife Alice died sometime in 1913. That is the only date on the mausoleum that Poole had made for them. She left behind her husband, 2 daughters, Mary L. Fahrenholt and Annie Poole, and 2 sons, Lawrence W. and Samuel Poole. William Poole worked as an accountant for the Bryan Estate, which owned the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Poole grew up in Manchester and was active in the South Side civic affairs. For most of his life, he belonged to the Central Methodist Church and was a Mason. William Wortham Poole died on February 26, 1922, at the age of 75 of pneumonia. Poole was laid to rest in the mausoleum in Hollywood Cemetery with his wife. There are rumors that the WW inscribed on the mausoleum represents fangs, while not having his date of birth or date of death on the mausoleum represents his immortality. The legend of the Richmond Vampire started following the real-life tragedy in which the Churchill Railroad Tunnel collapsed on October 2nd, 1925. taking an unknown number of workers' lives. The 4,000-foot-long Churchill Railroad Tunnel that collapsed entombed a steam engine, 10 flat cars, and an unknown number of workers. Hundreds of workers ran from the collapsing tunnel in all directions. There was total pandemonium when the tunnel started falling. Witnesses reported seeing a muscular creature that appeared to be human with flesh hanging off its body and jagged teeth. With blood coming out of its mouth, running from the collapsing tunnel, it ran straight to the pool mausoleum and vanished inside. When some people checked the mausoleum, nothing was found there or anywhere in the cemetery grounds. Another version said the creature was headed towards the James River. Another story says that the digging awakened an ancient evil that lived under Churchill, and that is what brought the tunnel down. Another story said it was fireman B.F. Mosby who crawled out of the tunnel and managed to escape death, at least for the time. Mosby had been scalded by the steam from a boiler and his teeth were broken. Mosby was rushed to Grace Hospital and died later that night. Could somebody who was familiar with the pool story have noticed Mosby and thought he was a vampire based on his jagged teeth? Whether the Richmond vampire story is true or just a campfire tale is still up for debate. The vampire legend gained momentum in the late 1950s and early 1960s. The Richmond Professional Institute, Virginia Commonwealth University told of strange happenings in the cemetery after it made some nightly visits. During the 1980s, the door of the pool mausoleum was broken open, and words of symbols of the occult were found painted on the outer walls. The glass of the lunette window on the inner wall was broken from the inside. Alright, as we're moving on, the next one is the Henrico County Werewolf. Throughout history, there have been legends of hairy creatures, including the legend of the werewolf. It's unclear when and where the legend of the werewolf began. The werewolf is a mythological creature. One legend states that certain people can change into a werewolf. Another says that a person can only change into a werewolf on a night with a full moon. Some scholars believe the werewolf made its first appearance in the Epic of Gilgamesh. However, the legend started, it has been handed down for centuries, first orally and then in written records. Recent sightings seem to prove that most of Virginia's werewolf sightings have occurred in Henrico County near the Confederate Hills Recreation Center at Lee Avenue in Highland Springs. Many of the local residents of this neighborhood have experienced more than one sighting of the werewolf. Those who have seen it say it doesn't seem to be interested in hurting anyone, but several reports have said that it would chase people around the park but never harms anyone. It's described as being about 6 feet tall, and it's said that it walks on 2 feet and is covered in black hair with a touch of silver, grayish, white, or gray hair, depending on who is describing it. It's said that it has a head like a wolf. Sometimes it runs on all four, but many say it can be heard howling, mainly on a night with a full moon. Ow. Right, the next one is another most popular one here in Virginia, located around Winchester, Virginia area, that nature. It's the ghostly stagecoach. This is another one I want to check into, maybe find the location and go check out one day. You heard about ghost cars, ghost planes, and ghost ships, but have you ever heard of a ghostly stagecoach? Well, it seems that Winchester, Virginia has a ghost stagecoach. It is painted red and has 4 ghost horses pulling it and, of course, a ghost driver. After a little research, its origins date back to May 24th of 1862 during the Civil War.
when a Northern spy hijacked a Shenandoah stagecoach in hopes of reaching its troops in time. The spy was trying to notify them about an impending attack from Confederate General Stonewall Jackson. The Confederate troops were in hot pursuit. The spy had to make it to Winchester to notify General Nathaniel Banks of the impending attack from the Confederate Army. With the odds definitely in his favor, he was making good time. But the weather wasn't cooperating. It had taken a turn for the worst. As he approached the crossroads at Mount Jackson, the unfortunate Union soldier met with his untimely death. He was struck by a lightning bolt from a dark cloud and died at the scene. At that time, the Confederate Army was on the verge of winning the Battle of Winchester. Sometimes this ghostly stagecoach can be seen on U.S. Highway 11 heading towards Winchester. Sometimes the blackened driver can be seen throughout the ghostly dust cloud thrown up by the horses and stagecoach. The dust cloud enveloped the coach, horses, and driver. The ghostly driver, stagecoach, and the four horses are on their endless journey to reach the Union Army. The next one is another good one around Petersburg, Virginia. Which Petersburg, if you don't know, it's a lot of haunted history, ghost stories around that location too. It's very historic. But this one is the Blandford Church and Cemetery. Blandford Church is the oldest building in Petersburg, Virginia. It has a well-documented history. Construction on the church started in 1735 and was completed in 1737. Blandford Church was built on Wells Hill, the highest point in Petersburg. Blandford Church was part of the Bristol Parish formed in 1643 by an Act of Assembly. The famous preacher George Whitefield preached at Blandford Church in 1737, and in 1799 a memorial service was held in the church for the first president of the United States, George Washington. Washington died on December 14, 1799. The church was used as an Anglican and Episcopal house of worship. Around 1805, the church was abandoned. The old abandoned Blandford Church played a significant role in the Civil War at Petersburg. Starting in May 1862, the church served as a telegraph station, among other things. During the siege of Petersburg, from June 15, 1864 to April 2, 1865, the church was hit by 3 shells. There wasn't enough damage that the church couldn't be saved. It was used as a hospital after the Battle of the Crater on July 30th, 1864. Between 1889 and 1905, the Ladies Memorial Association decided the church needed to be saved and started working on it right away. The group bought a speaker stand and 34 pews for the church. In 1901, the city of Petersburg donated the church to the Ladies Memorial Association. The ladies restored it as a memorial to the unfortunate Confederate soldiers who died in the war. They asked for donations from the 11 Confederate states for windows. 13 states donated windows, along with the Ladies Memorial Association and the Louise Comfort Tiffany, who designed and built the windows. Thanks to the Ladies Memorial Association, the Blandford Church is now in the National Register of Historic Places. But the cemetery next to Blandford Church, the Blandford Cemetery, is one of the nation's oldest and largest cemeteries. Buried there are around 30,000 Confederate soldiers who lost their lives fighting in the siege of Petersburg from June 9, 1864 to March 25, 1865. Only 3,700 of their names are recorded. The earliest tombstone is dated 1702. Veterans from every American war have been laid to rest in Blandford Cemetery. Blandford Cemetery is famous for its history and reputation as one of the most haunted cemeteries in America. Many people report feeling a sudden drop in temperature. Sightings of ghostly shadows have been reported around the cemetery, and the ghostly images of Confederate soldiers have been seen wandering around their grave sites. The next one is the Cohoke Crossing Ghost Light. Scientists and skeptics have been trying for as long as they have been popular to prove ghost lights don't exist. In their many attempts they have failed to achieve this. The legends of ghost lights have been handed down from generation to generation. Strange lights have been recorded throughout history. They are described as glowing balls of light or glowing orbs ranging from baseball size to basketball size. They are often observed from a distance. When someone gets too close, the lights vanish. There are many different names for ghost lights, like earth lights, St. Elmo's fire, foxfire, will-o'-the-wisp, earthquake lights, ball lightning, and spook lights. They appear out of nowhere, there for a few seconds or several minutes before vanishing. They are spherical in shape and their color varies. The most common colors are white, pale blue, and red. They have been seen on every continent on Earth. Most of them are seen on backcountry roads or railroads. Sailors have also seen them. Most legends about ghost lights state someone was killed in the location where the first light first appears. The West Point Ghost Light, or the Cohoke Crossing Ghost Light, is seen just outside the town of West Point, Virginia. For more than 100 years, residents and visitors alike have seen and told the story of the mysterious ghost light that appears along the railroad tracks at Cohoke's Crossing. One of the legends says that a train stopped at the crossing for the brakeman to check a connection between cars. The brakeman went to check the connection and had to go between the cars, but the train moved, knocking the brakeman down and severing his head. Some workers saw the accident when the brakeman's lantern fell and they went to help him. They put the lifeless body in the caboose but didn't look for his head. Some think the ghost light is the brakeman still walking the tracks near Cohoke Crossing, swinging his lantern in search of his head. The second legend involves a Civil War train filled with Confederate soldiers that disappeared before reaching its destination. The train possibly ambushed by Union soldiers, but what happened to the train? Could the light be from a ghost train still running the tracks? Another legend says that during the Civil War and after the Battle of Richmond, a train loaded with wounded Confederate soldiers was sent to West Point, Virginia. The train vanished somewhere along the way. The light that is seen could be a ghost train loaded with wounded soldiers. Another story says that 5 friends visited the crossing and saw the light at the same time. The first time it was seen, it looked like a welding arc. It was bright and shimmered for 3 to 4 seconds and then vanished as quickly as it appeared. The second time they saw it appear, it was red and moving left to right. It illuminated the tops of the tracks. Then the light turned into several lights and vanished after a few seconds. It appeared randomly 4 more times and illuminated the ground. It only lasted a few seconds each time. Another story says that in 1864, after the Battle of Cold Harbor, a train carrying wounded Confederate soldiers derailed on its way to West Point. The signalman who was supposed to switch the tracks was asleep and was decapitated. Some believe that the ghost light is the signalman swinging his lantern to signal the train. In one story, it is said that the light came pushing up as fast as a train at a group of people and then disappeared. The light has also been described as a white glowing jack-o'-lantern. In the 1880s, a train derailed near West Point Country Club and a crewman was injured. In the 1950s, a woman and her daughter were killed when a train hit her car while she was crossing the Mount Olive Cohogue Road. Scientific conclusions say that the ghost lights are simply swamp gas or distant car lights reflecting off the atmosphere, which you can never believe that, and scientists don't know what they're talking about. The steel active track is owned by Norfolk Southern. Don't walk down the tracks or stop your car on the tracks at the crossing, or you could become the next ghost light. The next one is another popular one that I have actually been to and read history about here a couple years ago. The 1987 Wytheville UFO. In October 1987, the community of Wytheville, Virginia, with a population of about 8,000, experienced a large number of UFO sightings. Wytheville is the county seat of Wythe County and is located in western Virginia. It was named after one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, George Wythe. What started out as another uneventful day in Wytheville turned out to be anything but uneventful. On the morning of October 7th, 1987, WYVE radio station news director Danny Gordon received a call from the local sheriff, Wayne Pike. The sheriff told Gordon that 3 of his deputies, all former military, had seen a UFO. The deputies were not the only witnesses to the sighting. Immediately after Gordon gave the news report, which included the UFO sightings by his deputies, the switchboard lit up. It was an unprecedented listener reaction. Gordon checked the Langley Air Force Base to see if there was any aircraft testing in the area. The base spokesman told Gordon that there was no testing going on in the area. On October 17, 1987, Gordon had arranged for anyone to call into the station who had witnessed a UFO in the Wytheville area. A woman then called in about her UFO experience. She said that the UFO she saw was huge and long and had several blinking lights on it, but she said the UFO didn't make any noise. A man called in and said that he had seen an egg-shaped UFO. Another woman called in to relay her experience. She said the UFO she saw was red, green, and white with flashing lights. Ann Williams said she had seen several UFOs from her house, which is located in the center of Wytheville. She said there were large objects with several lights around them and one red light in the center. Another caller said that the UFO they saw was just a big semicircle of white lights. It was huge and made no sound. Gordon still believed that there was a rational explanation for all the UFOs. Gordon contacted the Pentagon and was told that planes were not allowed to refuel that low. The military was not any help to Gordon in finding out what the UFOs were. On October 21, 1987, Danny Gordon and his friend Roger Hall, a commercial pilot, drove to Wythe County for several hours. They watched the sky for anything unusual. There was nothing. It looked like they had wasted a trip. On their way home, Gordon saw a strange object in the sky. They quickly pulled off the road to get a better look. They could see a large, domed, wingless craft heading in their direction. It had various colored lights with a strobe light on top. A red ball moved towards the craft and appeared to dock with it, and the craft flew up into the sky. The following night, they were hoping for another UFO sighting. Their wait was worth it, and they got pictures to prove it. A press conference was scheduled for the next day. That night, Gordon received a phone call. The caller didn't identify himself except to say he was a CIA agent. The caller told Gordon that the federal government was very interested in what they had seen. Gordon received several more calls warning him to stop investigating UFOs. After the conference was over, Gordon returned home to find that it had been broken into. Gordon believes that someone broke into his house looking for the UFO pictures, but nothing was taken. On December 2nd, 1987, Gordon, his wife, and their daughter were leaving the mall when they heard voices. They looked up and saw a group of 4 lights. Gordon took several pictures. The pictures showed that the lights had changed shape. By the end of December 1987, 1,500 UFO reports had been filed. On March 19, 1988, Gordon was packing, getting ready for a broadcasters conference in Virginia Beach, where he was scheduled to talk about the Whitfield UFOs. Gordon received a phone call from someone who said he was a retired military intelligence officer. He told Gordon to record the phone call, that he wanted proof that Gordon had been warned to stop publicizing the Whitfield UFO sightings. In case something happened to him, the person went so far as to threaten Gordon and his family. Around a month later, 2 men who claimed to be from a newspaper visited Gordon at his home. After a 45-minute interview, which was conducted by one man while the other took pictures around Gordon's home, the men left. Gordon contacted the newspaper the men said they worked for. The newspaper informed Gordon that they had never heard of the 2 men. Several weeks later, Gordon was going through his UFO pictures and discovered that the negative of the pictures that he had taken at the mall were gone. After being taken to the hospital for exhaustion, Gordon gave up the search for answers to the Whitfield UFOs. They are still unexplained. But what were the lights over Whitfield? Secret military crafts, alien spacecrafts, or something else? Whatever it was, something or someone wanted Gordon's investigation stopped. Alright, the next one we're going to be talking about is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge was completed in 2002. The intentions of the bridge were for it to serve as a connector between Henrico and Chesterfield counties. The bridge was constructed over the James River. There was great relief felt when it opened, but that didn't last long. People started seeing and hearing strange things such as flickering lights, balls of light, drums, and yelling. Some witnesses reported that they saw natives in full Native American clothing moving in and out of traffic and alongside the road. The toll booth workers reported seeing and hearing things that couldn't be explained. Historians who studied the site after these strange events was reported that the bridge was built on an ancient hunting and sacred burial ground that belonged to the Powhatan and Arawatic tribes. The spirits of the natives are upset due to the disturbance of their sacred grounds. Truck drivers have reported seeing flickering lights on the bridge's bluff. They have also reported seeing Native Americans in the middle of the highway holding up torches. 3 Native Americans were also seen lined up by the woods at one time. A toll booth worker filed a report with the Virginia Department of Transportation. The state police responded to the scene to check it out, but found no evidence of any Native Americans. Troopers also reported hearing the sound of Native American drums. Corrine Geller, a state police spokeswoman, visited the toll plaza late one night. She reported hearing at least a dozen voices howling and screaming. An engineer who was subcontracting with Blauvelt was working one night when they saw a Native American sitting on a horse at the bottom of the bridge. He started toward the Native American, and the Native American and the horse disappeared. There is evidence of Native habitation in the area dating to the 1600s and as far back as 3500 BCE. Dennis Blanton, the director of the College of William and Mary Center for Archaeological Research, conducted a dig there before the bridge was built. Blanton said that Native American artifacts that were found there were between 5 and 6,000 years old. That's crazy. That's a lot. And wow. The next one we're going to is the Poorhouse Road Tunnel. The Poorhouse Road Tunnel was built in the early 1900s as part of the Valley Railroad that ran between Stanton and Lexington, Virginia. The life of the tunnel as a railroad tunnel was short-lived as the automobiles soon took over. The tunnel allows Poorhouse Road to cut through a hill in Rockbridge County. A small stream now runs through the tunnel. The Poorhouse Road Tunnel has a dark history and a reputation for strange happenings. During the early 20th century, it is rumored that the tunnel was the site of a number of hangings. Another story says that a couple of young girls were playing on the edge of the woods when they were shot and killed by an unknown person. People who visit the tunnel have claimed to hear disembodied voices, while others have reported seeing handprints on their car. Other people reported that fog appeared in pictures that were taken inside the tunnel when no fog was physically visible. Others have reported seeing ghostly shadows on the tunnel walls, the sound of kids splashing and playing in the water, and the faint sound of laughter have also been heard. One person reported that a rock hit his car and that he could hear footsteps coming towards the back of his car. Several people have reported feeling the presence of an angry man and woman. The tunnel has since been vandalized with graffiti painted all on the walls. The next one is another big one here in the state of Virginia. The Salabria Manor. Stevensburg is a small, rural, unincorporated community located in Culpeper County, Virginia. Stevensburg sits at the intersection of Route 663 and 3. It is one of the smallest post offices in America, measuring only 10 by 15 feet. The community was named Stevensburg in honor of General Edward Stevens, who was a Revolutionary War hero from Culpeper. Culpeper County lies in the region where earliest settlers were German. The first immigrants arrived in 1714 and were mostly German miners who were enticed to move there by Virginia Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood. Some notable people with ties to Stevensburg were George Washington, a young surveyor at the time, Clara Barton, the founder of the Red Cross, and Daniel Boone, the legendary explorer who was a resident of Stevensburg in the 1750s. Of course, Stevensburg has its haunted side at Salabria Manor, a Georgian-style home built around 1757. It was built by the Reverend John Thomas, the rector of Little Fort Church, from 1740 to 1772. Reverend Thompson married Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood's widow. The house was named Salabria, which is Latin for healthful, by its owner at the time, James Hansbrough, in the early 1800s, and has been known as a Salabria since that time. The manor's exterior has unusually tall corbel-capped chimneys. The house has identical front and rear facades, built with brick laid in Flemish bond. Three sides are stuccoed to simulate cursed stone. The manor was placed in the Virginia Historic Landmarks Register in 1969 and the National Register of Historic Places in 1970. The manor is the oldest brick home in Culpeper County. In 2000, Laura N. Grayson, the widow of J. Gordon Grayson, donated the manor to the Memorial Foundation of the Germanic Colonies in Virginia. In 2011, the manor was damaged by the mineral earthquake that struck that area in Virginia. The Germanic Foundation, with the support and donations from a number of people and organizations, completed the earthquake repairs in 2013. Paranormal investigators have reported that the EVPs have been recorded here. Heavy footsteps have also been heard where there was no one there. One paranormal investigator got an audio recording of a voice mentioning the investigator by name. Several decades ago, two young Grayson boys who lived in the manor were asked to get some sugar from a barrel that was upstairs. When they went upstairs to get the sugar, they were shocked to see the dim figure of a woman with black hair dressed in white, standing with her arms outstretched. Some believe it could have been the spirit of Lady Spotswood. She floated noiselessly down the hall. Others believed it could have been the spirit of Miss Hansbrough, who is believed to have hanged herself in one of the bedrooms. Another paranormal investigator placed a coin at the east wall of Lady Spotswood's bedroom. When they went back to check it, the coin had moved 3/16 to half an inch across the floor. Another paranormal investigator captured what appeared to be a multi-directional, intelligent, and structured orb in that exact location. The ghostly apparition of Lady Spotswood has been seen wandering the halls of the manor. What's believed to be the footsteps of her son Robert have been heard on the stairway. There are two cemeteries on the grounds of the manor, but Lady Spotswood grave is missing. The next one we're going to be talking about is known as Foxfire. The Appalachian Mountains of Virginia are full of folklore and flora. Foxfire is one of the mountain's unusual natural occurring things. Most humans will never see foxfire. Foxfire is a small, whitish, luminous fungus that commonly grows on dead wood in the forest. The best time for its growth is when the ground is moist and wet. It is also called fairy fire. Appalachian Magazine says that the oldest recorded documentation of foxfire is from 382 BC by Aristotle, whose notes referred to a light that, unlike fire, was cold to the touch. The light from the fungus ranges from blue to green and yellow depending on the species. Among the large luminous forms is the ghost fungus. It appears completely normal during the day but can emit a soft glow at night. Also known as the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, is an example of a bioluminescent fungus that can be found in Virginia. You should note that observing the glowing mushroom is a very rare experience. Currently, there are only 71 different species of fungus that have been identified as capable of glowing in the dark, but not all of them are located in Virginia. The next one is a location I would love to visit to investigate. Bacon's Castle. Surrey County is home to Beacon's Castle, or Bacon's Castle, however you want to say it. And over 400 years of history, Bacon's Castle was built around 1655 by Arthur Allen. Until 1676, it was known as Allen's Brick House. It was occupied and looted by Nathaniel Bacon's rebels in 1776. During Bacon's Rebellion, ever since the rebellion, it has been called Bacon's Castle. It is the oldest documented house in Virginia and is the oldest brick dwelling in North America. It remained in the Allen family until 1843. It passed through several people until it was bought by the Preservation Virginia at an auction in 1972. The home is an outstanding example of English high-style 17th century domestic architecture. It is a cruciform brick house with triple diamond chimneys and an English roof. It was fully restored and furnished in the 1980s. There are several outbuildings on the property, including an 1830 slave dwelling. It has a fully restored 17th century English garden that was planted by the Garden Club of Virginia. But no castle would be complete without its resident ghosts. The most famous of these is a fireball or ghost light that floats from the old Lawns Creek Church ruins across the fields and onto the castle's grounds. It lingers around for a while and then turns and floats back to the old church ruins where it disappears. Disembodied voices, moans, and wails are heard around the castle. The sound of doors opening and closing have also been heard when there is nobody around. A doorknob on a second-story chamber door turns and opens the door on its own. People have felt their clothes being pulled in certain rooms. They have also reported hearing footsteps around the castle. Another ghostly light seen at the castle is the ghost light that comes from the garret, passes through the house, and goes out into an open field. The legend dates back to a nearly 100-year-old tale about a woman who left the garret while carrying a torch to meet her lover. She somehow managed to trip. The torch set her hair on fire, and then she burned to death. Former families who lived at the castle and workers have reported that objects have gone missing, were broken, or moved. Things are reported to have moved on their own. Chairs rock. Books fly off the shelves and furniture moves on its own. One woman discovered her room in total disarray. A round burner lamp was leaning against a pedestal with its globe broken. The ghostly sounds of gunshots have been heard around the castle. Some people have reported seeing a floating head in the castle. There have been reports of the white lady that appears in the house and on the property since the 1800s. Multiple electronic voice phenomenons, or EVPs, have also been recorded. Alright, the next one is the location that I have actually been to and investigated. Me and Nubs went there probably about 2 years ago now. It is the Exchange Hotel Civil War Museum in Gordonsville, Virginia. Before the Civil War, the Exchange Hotel welcomed passengers from two railroad lines, the Virginia Central and the Alexandria Railroad. The historic landmark located in Gordonsville was a forerunner of large railroad hotels. It played an important role in the history of railroad transportation of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The hotel was built by Richard F. Alejandro in 1860. He placed the hotel at an important railroad junction for maximum efficiency with its high ceiling parlors, grand veranda, and stately commons. It was a welcome stopping place for weary travelers. The Exchange Hotel served around 150 people daily, with some staying overnight. The unattached gentlemen would spend their nights in the tavern room. The upstairs rooms was reserved for unattached ladies, couples, and families. In March of 1862, due to its location on the railroad, it became part of the Gordonsville Receiving Hospital. It provided care for more than 23,000 sick and injured soldiers in the first year of the Civil War. The hospital treated around 70,000 sick and wounded from both the North and South during the Civil War. Over 700 soldiers were buried on the surrounding grounds after the war. The building returned to its original use as a hotel and enjoyed a fine reputation until the 1940s. Historic Gordonsville Incorporation acquired the hotel in the 1970s and fully restored it. It now operates as the Exchange Hotel Civil War Museum and has an extensive collection of medical and historical artifacts. Now let me talk about our investigation we did there. It was a wild night. We caught some good things. Caught a little girl. Got multiple EVPs. We did catch a Confederate soldier apparition figure on camera. If I remember correctly, a little ball, almost like a little bouncy ball, come rolling at us. Multiple noises and knocks, sounds, footsteps, a little bit of everything. It was a wild night. I really want to go back there soon. Take Chris with us this time. But I really want to go back there soon, do another investigation, because it was a great investigation, and it's a fun place to do. You catch so much activity the whole time, like it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So definitely want to go back up there here real soon. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen that video, go back in the channel, check it out. It's a great video. I am amazed by that one. That was a good investigation. But we got some more here. There are 3 buildings on the site of the Exchange Hotel. The main house, a kitchen and servants' quarters, and the train depot warehouse. There have been reports of some unexplained activity from guests. Some claim they saw orbs traveling from room to room. Others claim they saw columns of light moving from room to room. People have also seen doors open and close on their own. Full-bodied apparitions of doctors and soldiers have been seen on the grounds. Nurses in black period clothes have been seen descending the stairs. People have reported hearing screaming and moans throughout the museum and have seen nurses going from room to room. Members of the staff have reported hearing something heavy being dragged across the floor. Guests have reported feeling cold spots in the building. Another spirit is that they have a name for Anna. Her ghostly figure has been seen going from the kitchen to the main building. We actually caught her on camera when we was there. Several years ago, 3 women met a gentleman who was sitting on a hospital cot. After a 15-minute conversation, the ladies left thinking he was a reenactor. When they mentioned the reenactor to the bookstore operator, she told him that there was no one else here but me. They all went back to the cot, only to find the man that was gone. Another ghostly guest is the spirit of Major Quartermaster Richard. We called him on EVP and Spirit Box. He killed his wife, buried her in the woods, and then hanged himself. Richard has twice pinned the museum's president against a wall and has pushed another person down the stairs. He has also assaulted some paranormal investigators. A child ghost that haunts the museum is the spirit of a 14-year-old boy who worked in the building when it was a Civil War hospital. We called him on EVP too. He talked to us. And then I think the bouncy ball I was telling you about is the one coming up. Let me finish on this one and then we'll go to the one I think who threw the bouncy ball at us. So the boy worked in the building when it was a Civil War hospital. Some believe that he was a boy who died by committed suicide in the late fall of 1882. Now another child who haunts the property is called Emma. The ghost of Emma has frequently been seen on the property. A ghost hunter reportedly heard a North Carolina soldier say he died in the hospital and was trapped there. Half-bodied apparitions have been seen at the museum by employees. Footsteps have been heard around the building. People reported seeing ghostly shadows moving around the museum. People have also been touched and pushed by an invisible force. EVPs have been recorded there. Yes, we caught quite a bit of EVPs. The next one is another place I've also been to. That was okay. We got some good activity there. Is Crawford Road in Yorktown, Virginia. Crawford Road has a feeling of almost being deserted. That is until recently when some development moved in on both sides of the road. There is an old abandoned house beside the road. Crawford Road is a winding path that runs through Newport News in York County. The name of the road is actually spelled 2 different ways. One is Crawford on the York County side, and the other is Crawford on the Newport News side. Frank Green, the former president of York County, Historical Society says the correct spelling is Crawford. It was named after a prominent family who lived in the area. Crawford Road has a long, dark, and supposedly haunted past. It is one of the most haunted roads in Virginia. Local law enforcement has found a number of bodies and skeletal remains in the area over the past 30 years. One of the ghostly legends about the road centers on a bridge who was to be married many years ago. She hanged herself from the bridge on her wedding day instead of marrying her intended. Another legend about the bride says that there was a wedding, but she was not happy, so to escape her unhappiness, she hanged herself from the bridge. People have reported seeing the body of a woman hanging from the bridge. Others have reported seeing a woman dressed in a white gown looking down from the bridge and then stepping off, only to hang. Suspended in midair before disappearing, some report that if you stop your car under the bridge and turn it off, it will not cut back on. People have also seen ghostly soldiers in the area and heard the sounds of a battle. Others have reported feeling like they ran over something. When they go back to check, nothing is there. Some say that when you pass under the bridge, your windows fog up and handprints start appearing on them. One couple reported that when they drove under the bridge, their CD player let out a high-pitched shrieking sound. The shrieking sound lasted for about 10 seconds. When they left the bridge, the noise stopped. Some people say that when they drove under the bridge, it sounded like something fell on top of their car and then slid down the back. Some have reported seeing ghostly figures standing in the middle of the road. A developer once saw a strange fog suspended just below the bridge. As the developer watched, it looked like it took the form of a person. EVPs have been caught on the road. Some say that when they stopped under the bridge, they heard footsteps approaching the car. Others reported hearing babies crying. Some people who were parked under the bridge had somebody or something trying to open their doors. Upon further inspection, bloody handprints were found. Much of Crawford Road runs through a watershed and the Yorktown battlefield. The next one is the Sinking Spring Cemetery. The Sinking Spring Cemetery was established on July 4th, 1776, as a burial ground for those who were members of the Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church, which was organized in 1773. The members of Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church, led by Reverend Charles Cummings, built a log church house and established the cemetery on 11 acres of land. The log church house is still standing. Sinking Spring Cemetery is now owned by the town of Abington in Washington County, Virginia. Visitors are welcome to visit the cemetery during the daytime. You can find tombstones that date over 200 years old. The cemetery is surrounded by old trees and steeped in history. Over 30 Confederate soldiers are interred in the unknown Confederate dead section of the cemetery. These soldiers' deaths may have resulted from a train wreck that occurred in the area during the Civil War. Soldiers from the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 are also buried there. There are a few ivy-covered crypts in the cemetery. Brigadier General John B. Floyd, Lieutenant Colonel W. W. Blackford, and Civil War era Richmond newspaper editor Robert Hughes are interred in the Spring Cemetery. The ivy-covered crypt located at the entrance of the cemetery is believed to be haunted by the spirit of a young child. The door to the crypt opens and closes without being touched. Voices and whispers have been recorded on EVP's recorders around the crypt. Luminescent lights and glowing orbs have been seen around the cemetery. In 1773, Reverend Charles Cummings became the first minister of the Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church, one of the earliest Presbyterian churches in Southwest Virginia. and its first meeting house was soon constructed of logs. The earliest marked grave in the cemetery is dated 1776. Buried in the cemetery are pioneers, veterans of the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and the Civil War, and two antebellum Virginia governors, David Campbell and John B. Floyd, who served as President James Buchanan's Secretary of War. Cummings' Long Manse, among the oldest east of the Mississippi River, was moved here in 1971 from its original site 2 miles north. Now the next one. I love this place. We all love this place. We just went to it here a couple months ago. Y'all may know what it is. It's none other than the St. Albans Sanatorium. St. Albans Sanatorium sits on top of a hill in the small southwest city of Radford, Virginia. The sanatorium was opened in 1892 as a prestigious Lutheran boys' school. The school eventually closed, and by 1916, Dr. J.C. King had bought the building and converted it into a hospital for the mentally ill. In the 1900s, the mentally ill were used as subjects for experimental medical procedures. Many of the experimental procedures that were being performed there ended in the horrific deaths of many of the patients. Just a few of the experiments being used were hydroshock therapy, electroconvulsive therapy, insulin coma therapy, lobotomies, and the process of cutting people's skulls open and blasting them with water from fire hoses. Many of these experiments went horribly wrong. These practices resulted in a significant number of fatalities, including many deaths by suicide. By 1945, the hospital had treated 6,509 patients with only 48 hospital staff members. In the 1990s, the Carillion Health System acquired St. Albans Sanatorium and vacated the property in 2003. Tim Gregory bought the property and made it his mission to renovate the remaining buildings. Gregory's plan was to turn the site into a research and enlightenment center to fund the efforts. Gregory hosts a number of different things, including public and private ghost hunts. The ghost hunts are led by teams of paranormal experts. The voice of a female whispering has been recorded in an electroshock therapy room. The spirits of children and patients have been seen on the main building's lower level. The ghost of a staff member have also been seen on the lower level. There's an old underground bowling alley that is rumored to hold the spirits of two females, which one is a little girl. People report that a strange mist appears in a bowling alley when someone mentions Gina Renee Hall. Disembodied voices have been heard throughout the buildings. Disembodied screams and footsteps have also been heard around the buildings. Some have reported seeing objects move on their own, and some people have been pushed by an unseen force. Strange shadows have also been seen moving throughout the building's empty hallways. Some people believe that it's the ghosts of several women that are still trapped in the suicide room, where at least 4 people have taken their own lives. A chair in the rocker room is often seen rocking by itself. We caught that on camera. A strange shadow has been seen running down the stairs. Full-bodied apparitions have been photographed in an old alcoholics ward. People have reported hearing rifle shots and smelling smoke from a gun. Spectral mists have been seen rising from the sanitarium's surrounding grounds. The Drapers' Meadow Massacre of 1775 was the first event to contribute to the site's haunted past. Then came the Battle of Cloyd's Mountain, one of the Civil War's most violent battles. Both of these events happened on the land where St. Albans stands today. St. Albans has been given the title of the most haunted location on the East Coast. That place is a madhouse for paranormal activity. We've been there twice, and both times we've caught numerous things, figures, noises, the chair rocking, wheelchairs getting pushed by itself, us getting touched, pushed, scratched. A lot of stuff has happened at St. Albans from our own experience. We've been there twice, and it's ridiculous the amount of activity we caught. From K2 spikes to rim pod to dowsing rods, spirit box communication, EVP, that place is a madhouse. If you ever need a good place to investigate, go to St. Albans. You will not be disappointed. The next one, I ain't never heard of this one before, is Sonic Booms over Virginia. Seneca guns, skyquakes, sonic booms, the sound of the apocalypse, or whatever you want to call them. There are no explanations for the noises heard over Virginia. Unusual and unexplained booms are heard around the world. The specific origin of these sounds is still unknown. Booming sounds without an obvious source are extremely common. Some people say that the sounds come from earthquakes. Despite the ground not shaking, earthquakes can occur and can cause sound. But this can account for some of the unexplained sounds, but the military is another possible explanation for some of the booms, but not all of them. Planes that can fly so fast that they break the sound barrier will create a booming sound, but that can't account for the reports of the sound that date to 1824. Although this strange apocalyptic booming sound comes from the sky, it could have an earthly origin. However, it is possible that the booming sounds come from above. It could be caused by a meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere. It's not hard to miss the flash of a meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere, but it may be difficult to connect it to the sound it makes due to the time it takes for the sound to travel that far. Another explanation for some of the sounds could be that shock waves caused by coronal mass ejections from the sun are smashing into the Earth's upper atmosphere. In the United States, most reports of these mysterious booming sounds come from along the East Coast. These sounds on the East Coast have not been directly studied or explained. The term Seneca guns is commonly used to refer to the sounds heard near Lake Seneca in New York. The name Seneca guns is also used for the mysterious booming sounds heard along the coasts of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. On January 5, 2014, WTVR received hundreds of calls about mysterious booms that were being heard across central Virginia. The noise rattled people's homes. The mysterious booms were heard from Chester, southern Chesterfield County, Colonial Heights, and Hopewell. Law enforcement officers and firefighters were called out to check on the booms. Chesterfield dispatchers said officers were called out on the Sunday afternoon to reports of exploding discs. Dispatchers received at least 3 calls before 5:30 p.m. from separate areas of the city about the loud noise. Around January 27, 2014, mysterious booms were heard across central Virginia that rattled many homes. Law enforcement officers and firefighters were called out after receiving a number of calls about the booming sounds. Residents from the counties nearby reported the booms. The booms were coming every 2 or 3 days and the sound varied somewhat. Surveillance cameras were checked, but there was no sign of what could cause the booms. WTVR-TV 6 confirmed that the sounds did not come from Fort Lee, Fort Pickett, the rock quarries in Dinwiddie or Chesterfield County, or transformers exploding. On January 19, 2014, residents from Central Virginia made reports about mysterious booms heard in Colonial Heights, Chester, southern Chesterfield County, Prince George, Ettrick, Matoka, and the Shepherd Stadium in the Sherwood Hills and Tussing neighborhoods. Some residents said that this was the third time they had heard the booms that month. Around June 10, 2015, loud booms in the early morning got the attention of residents of Chesterfield, Dinwiddie, and Prince George. The booms were so intense that they shook homes. The booms continued for about 10 minutes. On April 29th, 2019, a loud boom was heard across the Hampton Roads area. Reports also came in from Southern Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, and Suffolk. Several people reported that the hanging pictures on their walls fell. WAVY-TV contacted the Navy. Naval Air Force Atlantic spokesman Commander Dave Hecht said that an F-18 Super Hornet was operating in an area offshore at the time, but could not confirm that the F-18 Super Hornet was the cause of the booms. The next one is another wild one that we're going to talk about. It's the Old House Woods. You talk about...
This is where the dark forest comes into play. Let's go.
Virginia is home to a haunted forest known as Old House Woods. The woods are located just outside of the coastal town known as Diggs in Matthews County. While most of the woods in Virginia are quiet, peaceful, and beautiful, Old House Woods is just strange. The Old House Woods are located in the Chesapeake Bay area, which is known for its pristine coastal beauty. There are several strange and mysterious legends that Old House Woods is known for. One of the most active patches in the woods is a 50-acre area of dense pine woods and marshland near White's Creek. The area once served as a port for pirates and Revolutionary War soldiers who wanted to hide out. One of the mysteries about Old House Woods is centered on an abandoned house known as the Franny Night House that was said to be in the middle of the woods. People say the house set itself on fire and then put itself out. Eventually, the house burned to the ground. There have been reports of people seeing a massive ghostly ship with lights and crewmen sail off of the Chesapeake Bay through a fog and dock on the water at the edge of the woods. When the ghost ship docks along the banks of White's Creek, the ghostly crew climbs out of it to search for the treasure they buried there hundreds of years ago. The pirates and the ship were swept away in a huge storm and never recovered their treasure. Another legend about the ghost ship says that it sailed above the water and continued on above the trees before coming to a stop. Ropes were then dropped and the ghostly crew climbed down into the forest. Another story says that some of the ghostly figures are headless. It is believed that the pirates buried their treasure in the woods during the days of piracy in America. Another tale dates to 1929 when a man reported that he had been approached by a group of strangers carrying lanterns that gave off a mysterious glow. As the group moved closer to the man, he discovered that there were skeletons wearing old-fashioned armor and carrying swords. Another legend associated with Old House Woods is that of the Storm Woman, a beautiful fair-haired spirit wearing a nightgown that makes an appearance when a gale is coming off the bay. She then rises above the treetops, shrieking a warning to the watermen. The appearances of ghostly images and strange lights and the sounds of footsteps, cannon fire, and disembodied voices have also been experienced inside the old house woods. That is a wild place I would love to check out. The next one is the Cold Harbor Battlefield. The Battle of Cold Harbor was fought during the Civil War from May 31st to June 12, 1864. The heaviest fighting occurred on June 3, 1864. The battle was between the armies of Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant and General Robert E. Lee. This was General Lee's last victory over General Grant. Grant's army totaled 109,000 to Lee's army of 59,000. At the beginning of the battle, in the Battle of Cold Harbor, an estimated 16,000 men were either killed, wounded, missing, or captured. On June 3rd, in under an hour, around 7,000 of Grant's men were killed. The Cold Harbor Battlefield is located near Mechanicsville, Virginia. Cold Harbor Battlefield is said to be one of the most haunted battlefields in America. Locals and visitors claim to hear the booms of cannon fire around the area. Many people report smelling the scent of burned gunpowder and seeing smoke from the guns. Many people have reported hearing shouts and cries from unseen soldiers. Many have reported hearing the pounding of horses' hooves. Many visitors have reported seeing full-body apparitions of Union and Confederate soldiers wandering around the battlefield. Strange lights that don't have a source have also been seen. On many nights, strange orbs can be seen around the battlefield. People have reported feeling like they were being followed, but when they looked around, no one was there. Strange fogs and mist have been seen settling over the battlefield. Some people have reported seeing the ghost of a little girl wearing a white dress and a bonnet wandering the graveyards that border the battlefield. The little girl might have been the daughter of a local gravedigger. She reportedly fell to her death from a window in the Garthwright House, a historic house that sits on the edge of Cold Harbor Battlefield. Some people have reported seeing the little girl looking out the window of the house. The Garthwright House was used as a field hospital for wounded soldiers and was named for its owner, Miles Garthwright, a Confederate soldier. Nearly 100 soldiers died in the house and were buried in the front yard. Since many of the soldiers' graves could not be identified, the tomb of the unknown soldier and the Pennsylvania monument were placed on the property for the soldiers who remain nameless. Strange orbs have been seen floating between the gravestones, and flickering lights have been seen in several spots on the property. The next one we're talking about is the Aquia Episcopal Church. The Episcopal Church was established in 1667 and is the oldest active church in Stafford County, Virginia. The early years of the church were filled with tragedy. Construction on the church started in 1751. The structure burned in 1754. In 1757, the church was rebuilt. Due to a lack of money, the church was closed for a time during the American Revolution, but the church managed to survive the War of 1812. When the Civil War came to Stafford County, the church and its grounds were used as a stable, a hospital, and a campsite for the Union Army. Reverend J. M. Meredith became the church's rector in November 1864 and used his own money to repair the vandalism done to the church by the Union Army. Past members of the congregation include signers of the Leedstown Resolution, a precursor to the Declaration of Independence. When the church was reopened after the Revolutionary War, the remains of a woman who were found in the church belfry. The remains still had the woman's blonde hair. Nothing is known about the woman or her death, except that her death was probably violent due to the bloodstains that were found on the floor. One story says that the woman was hiding from a gang of highwaymen and was found and killed. People have reported seeing the image of a blonde-haired woman in an upper window of the church. It has been said that the bloodstains from the woman's alleged murder remained on the floor until it was replaced with concrete. When some people decided to check out the haunting, they said they encountered an unfriendly presence. Unearthly lights and sounds have also been experienced in the church. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps running through the graveyard, then the sound of a struggle when no one is there. The Aquia Episcopal Church was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1991. The next one is another popular one. The Devil's Marble Yard is located deep inside the Jefferson National Forest. The Jefferson National Forest was designated on April 21st, 1936, when Franklin D. Roosevelt, by proclamation, formed the Jefferson National Forest out of lands formerly contained in the Unaka and Natural Bridge National Forests. In the Clinch and Mount Lake Purchase units, the Devil's Marble Yard is an unusual attraction that few people have seen. The Devil's Marble Yard includes thousands of massive boulders that cover an 8-acre expanse of a mountainside. According to a United States Geologic Survey report, these rocks were first formed more than 500 million years ago from a white sandy beach. It was then that this very pure quartz beach sand was filled with worms that created tunnels as they moved through it. The sand was then submerged underwater and transformed into quartzite, the state in which remained for millions of years until ice crystals formed along the worms' tunnels. This ice then expanded, forming boulders that came falling down the mountainside. The straight tube-like structures that run parallel to each other on these boulders are the fossilized remains of the tunnels that were formed and probably occupied by the worms. The Devil's Marble Yard can be reached by taking the 4.5-mile Belfast Trail. The Belfast Trail is well maintained, but it has 3 streams crossing it. The next one is the Stanton Train Depot. The little town of Stanton, Virginia is located in the Shenandoah Valley, which is bordered by the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Ridge and Valley Appalachians and the Potomac and James Rivers. In the early 1700s, Europeans began settling in the area by 1763. After nearly 11,000 years, these Europeans drove the natives from their homeland in the valley. This land is now home to the town of Stanton, Virginia, which was first settled by the Lewis family from Ireland. The family arrived in 1732. In 1736, a wealthy planter named William Beverly, who had inherited a large amount of land in Virginia, moved into the area. In 1747, surveyor Thomas Lewis planned to build a town in the area. The location of the town was first called Beverly's Mill Place. The name didn't last long as it was changed to Stanton in honor of Lady Rebecca Stanton, who at the time was the wife of the loyal Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Sir William Gooch. In 1781, Stanton served as the capital of Virginia for a short time. Stanton's courthouse was built in 1745. The courthouse was an important meeting place for people like Patrick Henry and Daniel Boone, among many others in the early 1800s. The town of Stanton had 200 buildings and several large plantations. Enslaved people made up about 20% of Stanton's population. In 1854, the arrival of the Virginia Central Railroad made Stanton a commercial center. A railroad depot was built to accommodate the train's passengers. By the time of the Civil Wars, a commercial borough known as the Wharf had cropped up the depot. This is where trains loaded and unloaded their freight. When Union Major General David Hunter arrived in Stanton with his Union forces in 1864, They burned Stanton's first depot, a one-story building. Following the Civil War, the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad was formed with a merger of the Virginia Central and the Covington and Ohio Railroads. The town's second railroad depot was built in 1872 by the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. In 1890, the second depot was damaged when a train derailed and crashed into it. The current depot was opened in 1906. By the 1960s, the depot was sitting empty and was not being used. In 1987, a fire in the freight house almost destroyed many of the railroad buildings. Vic and Linda Murnart of Atlanta, Georgia, bought the railroad complex and renovated it for commercial purposes. The depot served as a restaurant for many years. In 2019, following interior renovations, the depot was reopened as an event venue. The train depot is now haunted by spirits from the past. On April 26, 1890, 17-year-old Myrtle Ruth Knox, a telegrapher turned opera singer, boarded a train in Missouri. Knox had high hopes for a new career. She had just joined the Pearl of Peck and Company in Kansas City. Her dreams were cut short, however, when the train conductor lost control and the runaway train crashed into the depot. Pieces of the depot flew through the windows of the sleeper car Knox was in. Knox quickly died from severe bleeding caused by her wounds. One of her legs was nearly severed. Myrtle Ruth Knox was the only person who perished in the wreck. The ghost of Myrtle Ruth Knox is usually seen at night, dressed in a nightgown and wandering around the station's platform. The spirit of Knox is also known for pulling the hair of female travelers. Another ghost that is often seen at the depot is that of D.C. McElroy, a Confederate soldier who was killed by a train in 1861. He was drunk and stumbled onto the tracks of an oncoming train. His spirit continues to be seen stumbling along the tracks. Some say that the wandering spirits of those who suffered from terrible conditions at the nearby hospital are often seen wandering into the station. Strange lights have been reported along with ghostly shadows and disembodied voices in the area. The next one is the Molehill Volcano. When one thinks of Virginia's diverse natural landscapes, one would hardly think of a volcano, even an extinct or perhaps long dormant one. However, Virginia has one of the youngest volcanoes in the United States. It's considered to be the last active volcano along the eastern seaboard. Molehill Volcano was last active about 48 million years ago, which geologically speaking is relatively recent. Molehill Volcano is located in Rockingham County, about 2.5 miles west of Harrisonburg in the central Shenandoah Valley, and is on private property. Gerald Knisley bought 46 acres of land in 2010. He had it protected through a conservation easement with the Virginia Outdoors Federation. You need to get permission from the owner before going on the property. Molehill Volcano is formed of igneous rock and crystals are found inside the rock. The rest of the Shenandoah Valley is formed of sedimentary rock. Molehill Volcano is 1,895 feet above sea level, but only 150 feet above nearby Harrisonburg. Scientists think that the volcano was fueled when the bottom section of its tectonic plate broke off and slid back into the mantle. Molehill's volcano mere presence is intriguing to geologists. The next one is the Black Horse Inn. The original section of the Black Horse Inn mansion was built in the 1850s. Additions to the original building were constructed in the early 1900s. The Black Horse Inn is located in Warrenton, Virginia. The Black Horse Inn was named after the Black Horse Cavalry, which was founded in 1858. Governor Henry Wise called the Black Horse Cavalry to active duty in 1859. The Black Horse Cavalry led a victorious charge against the Union Army at the First Battle of Manassas and won the special praise of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. The Black Horse Inn served as a hospital for a time during the Civil War. The Black Horse Inn is now a bed and breakfast. It has 10 rooms with private baths. Some of the rooms have a jacuzzi tub and a fireplace. It has ample porches and beautifully landscaped grounds. The Black Horse Inn is haunted by several ghosts. One of the more prominent ghosts is that of a woman, possibly a Civil War nurse. People say that she laughs softly in men's ears. Another resident ghost is the Christmas ghost. Over the years, he's been known to knock down the Christmas tree, breaking many ornaments. This ghost apparently tries to entertain people. He is known as a dancing ghost that likes to tap dance on top of the stairs at night. Another ghost is that of a man in the burgundy room. He leaves an impression on the bed when he lays down or sits on it. Visitors to the inn report hearing the sounds of laughter, footsteps, and unexplained voices when no one is present. Things fall and windows open on their own. Some people have reported feeling like they are being watched, while others have reported a sudden drop in temperature. The next one is the ghost of Sarah Henry. Patrick Henry married his childhood sweetheart, 16-year-old Sarah Shelton, in 1754 at her family home. In 1755, their first child, Martha, was born. During their marriage, they had 5 more children: John, William, Anne, Elizabeth, and Edward. In 1771, Henry bought the 10,000-acre Scotchtown plantation for $18,000. The Henrys lived on Scotchtown from 1771 to 1778. After the birth of their last child in 1771, Sarah's mental health began to decline. The exact cause of this is not known. At the time, mental illness was associated with evil spirits and demon possession and often kept secret. Mentally ill individuals could be institutionalized or confined at home. The only mental hospital in the area was located in Williamsburg, Virginia, and given his barbaric treatment of mental patients, Henry decided to keep Sarah at home. Sarah had to be restrained in a straitjacket type dress to prevent her from causing herself harm. She was confined to 2 rooms in the basement. Sarah was looked after by Henry and their house staff. Sarah died in 1775 and was laid to rest in an unmarked grave on Scotchtown Plantation. Today, no one knows exactly where she was buried. In 1760, after teaching himself law, Patrick Henry went to Williamsburg to be examined. Patrick Henry was admitted to the bar and received his professional license to practice law. History was made on March 23, 1775, when Patrick Henry gave a speech in which he declared, "Give me liberty or give me death." Henry is well known as an American patriot who helped birth the nation. After the adoption of the Constitution in 1776, Patrick Henry was elected the first governor of Virginia. Henry sold Scotchtown in 1777 when he was elected governor for the second time and moved to the governor's mansion in Williamsburg, Virginia. Patrick Henry was re-elected in 1778, then again in 1784 and 1785. Henry held the governor's office for 5 terms. Scotchtown sat abandoned for many years. In 1958, it was bought by the Association for the Preservation of Virginia Antiques and was completely restored. People who have passed by the house have seen lit candles in the windows when the house was dark. Some have reported seeing the image of a person holding a candle. A woman dressed in a long white gown is said to appear to visitors inside the building and out on the grounds. People have also reported seeing a woman in a long white dress walking out of the basement door at the back of the house. Small items and furniture appear to move by themselves. When the home is locked up, especially the cradle that belonged to the Henry's family, motion detectors and security alarms go off by themselves when no one is in the house. Doors will open and close by themselves when no one is close by. Some have heard a woman screaming. Footsteps have been heard in the attic and on the stairs. Some visitors have reported feeling an invisible presence. Paint will not stay on the walls of Sarah's basement rooms. It keeps peeling off, and the eyes of the painting of Joseph Shelton seem to follow people as they move around. And the last one, and the final one we're going to be talking about today is a Assateague Lighthouse. The Assateague Island is a 37-mile-long barrier island off the coast of Virginia and Maryland. The Chincoteague National Wildlife Refuge on the island is home to the Assateague Lighthouse. Assateague Island is known for its wildlife, beautiful beaches, and of course its most famous residents, the wild ponies. The original lighthouse was constructed in 1833 and cost $55,000. It housed a Lewis lamp, a chandelier light device that had 11 oil-burning lamps with reflectors. Years later, the old lighthouse was torn down due to its inefficiency. The original lighthouse was for 7 years home to lighthouse keeper David Watson. Watson lived alone and monitored the lighthouse. Watson died mysteriously in the lighthouse. His death has never been explained. In 1860, construction started on a taller, more powerful illuminated brick lighthouse, but the Civil War stopped work on a new lighthouse. When the Civil War was finally over, work resumed and the lighthouse was completed in 1867. The lighthouse has two 1,000-watt lamps that double flash every 5 seconds at a height of 154 feet above sea level. The base of the lighthouse is over 27 feet in diameter. An internal spiral stairway leads to the top. The lighthouse is located on the Virginia portion of the island and is painted with red and white stripes. The Ghost Card still maintains the lighthouse as active navigational aid. The ownership of the lighthouse has been transferred to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, which is responsible for preserving the lighthouse. The lighthouse is in the National Register of Historic Places. In 1933, the lighthouse was converted for electricity. Some believe that the original lighthouse keeper, David Watson, is still watching over the new lighthouse. Reports say that the door to the lighthouse is often found unlocked in the morning despite being locked by the last person who left the night before. The spirits of the 5 sailors who jumped ship when they landed on the sandbar of Assateague Island in 1720 and drowned while trying to swim to shore are believed to still haunt the island. The ship's crew also dropped off horses on the island to lighten their load and dislodge the ship from the sandbar. And that's all of the mysterious creatures and things we're going to be talking about today for the state of Virginia. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed doing it. I can't wait to do it again next week. Like I said, this Saturday, me, Chris, and Rob will be filming some abandoned houses, so stay tuned for those. Next Thursday will be the next episode of the podcast. We'll have more to talk about. Some more brand new topics. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And until next time, we'll see you guys on the next adventure.